Welcome to another episode of Professional Builders Secrets. In this episode, I interview Scott Groschel from SG Construction. Scott has reshaped the way his company operates by embracing offshore team members. He was unsure about the whole process, but once he dove in and started researching it, it has totally changed his business, helping with everything from drafting to estimating and even project admin. If you've ever wondered how an offshore team member may be able to help your building company, this episode's a must listen. Enjoy. This episode of Professional Builders Secrets is brought to you by Apparatus Contractor Services. Apparatus provides full scope, end-to-end QuickBooks precision construction accounting and CFO services for residential builders. If you feel like you can't completely trust your weekly and monthly financial reports, or you feel like you're flying blind, Apparatus will rebuild and operate your QuickBooks accounting system and give you precision construction accounting capability you can trust. Learn more at apparatusteam.com or on the APB Rewards Partner Directory.
As the pandemic started, a lot of the business moved to online. Shortly after 2020, I got hooked up with JobTread. It put all of our paperwork into a platform that anybody could participate in. I was really struggling with my time management. After we finished the time audit, there were some pretty glaring problems. And that's when we thought maybe some offshore help might work. Like, hey, it feels like I'm hiring a stranger. You have to give them immediate access to your files. I was uncomfortable with that. There was a big challenge. The first candidate I hired did not work out, but there's the opportunity to grow. And they were immediate in solving them for me.
Welcome to Professional Builders Secrets, the podcast for building company owners who want to grow safely and securely. I'm your host, Will Blunt, and today I'm joined by Scott Groschel from SG Construction. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Will. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to join you today.
Yeah, great to have you on, all the way from San Francisco. I'm in Sydney, Australia, so good to be able to connect.
You're right, on the other side of the world.
Tell me about SG Construction and how it all started and what you guys do.
Yeah, SG Construction, we specialize in outdoor living. So we're the general contractor in an outdoor living project. We build decks, pergolas, pavilions, cabanas, outdoor pool houses, and all the elements that surround these structures. So fire pits, kitchens, the whole 9 yards in a backyard project. Now, when I say general construction, we don't do pools and we don't do landscaping. So we specialize in the accessory structure of a backyard project. So it's very much outdoor living. And California, we have excellent weather. It's very popular to spend 3/4 of the year outside enjoying your space. So that's our specialty. We started in 2009 is when we opened the company. And it's been a long, a ride. We didn't start in outdoor living. We were close. We started in fencing specifically, and we transitioned to decking, and it's grown from there. I was looking for more challenges, and me personally, I started in construction when I was 15. So that was 1997, and went right to digging holes on a deck project for a local general contractor. And I stuck with it through university. And after university, went into custom home building, as a lead carpenter. Learned a lot about custom home building and increased my skills. And then spent 3 years as a project manager for an outdoor living company and got a lot of project management skills. And then after that, opened SG Construction.
Interesting. Yeah. You mentioned in our pre-interview chat that all of the outdoor work you do is fully custom as well. Are there any parallels with a custom home building company that you've found just from being exposed to both?
Yeah, I'd say the type of client that we have is very similar. So our target audience is upper class, wealthier, and it comes with, when we're dealing with the customers and the clients, they have those tastes and they want it specific to their project, how they want it. And a lot of times they don't know exactly how they want it, and they're looking for our guidance. So the demands on the project are very similar. There's really a lot of overlap. I'm not a custom home builder, but it's very similar clientele, and it's still construction.
Dealing with some big personalities, no doubt.
right?
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to get you on today, other than just to share your great story, was you've had some great success with offshoring. So working with team members overseas to help you, run different parts of your business. What kind of got you started with offshoring initially?
Yeah, the kind of to give it some context, we have to go back a few years, probably to the pandemic. So during, as the pandemic started, a lot of the business moved to online. I've always been on computers. Everybody's been on computers for a long time, but construction here was delayed. So, the municipalities and permitting offices started everything, everybody knows what we're talking about. So that kind of was a transition that opened the door for me. Shortly after 2020, I got hooked up with JobTread, and that's our, construction management CRM software. And that really gave an opening for us to onboard somebody offshore. It put all of our paperwork into a platform that anybody could participate in. So with those two things, that really got us closer to onboarding somebody offshore. It gave us an opportunity. I was working with Clint, and Clint is my coach, as you know, and I was really struggling with my time management. So he put me through, a time audit, and I think I remember the acronym. DAD is delete, automate, delegate.
Yep, you got it.
And yeah, so the time audit was amazing. I learned some things that I had never really realized, and after we finished the time audit, there was some pretty glaring problems, and that's when we thought maybe some offshore help might
Mm.
work.
You must have been a pretty early adopter of JobTread. I mean, everyone's jumping on board now, but 2020, well, they must have only just got going or close to.
Yeah, I think I was at the end of 2022. So the setup was in 2020, but that started all the changes, right? I was adverse to changes before 2020, and JobTread, that implementation was a pretty big ask for me to do, but I saw the need and went for it, and it's been an exciting ride since.
Talk to me more about this time audit. Can you what does that even like? How do you determine all the things that you're doing and try and figure out whether or not you should delete, automate, or delegate?
Yeah, the process was pretty simple. I don't know that I did it exactly right, but it accomplished what we needed it to accomplish. I looked at my daily schedule. I kept track of what I was spending time on, and after 2 weeks, I was like, yeah, I don't need to do site visits every day to every project. I don't need to meet with the customer every day if I order my day properly, schedule properly. And, I started delegating some responsibilities to our foreman and making sure they were able to handle it properly. JobTread actually was a big part. When I was working with Clint, I wasn't using all of JobTread's features. And I started realizing, hey, the automation in JobTread can take care of this.
When you say automation features in JobTread, what are some examples of things that you were able to automate that you were doing manually before?
Yeah. So, the invoicing process, we have budgets, create the budgets, create proposals go out to the customer. Instead of going back later on in the project and looking through the proposal and determining what kind of invoice we need to send and what the dollar amount was, the proposal is actually able to auto generate the invoices. When you're ready, when you hit your milestone, they can auto send to the customer. In fact, with the scheduling function, when you reach the milestone in your schedule, it can auto send the invoice based on your schedule that you built at the beginning of the project. So if you're on time,
Yeah,
you
that's
don't have
assuming
to
you're
worry
on
about
time, I guess.
it. Easier said than done. But yeah, that's just a simple example. I wasn't ready to take advantage of all those features in the beginning, being a smaller company, but as we've grown, we've been able to take advantage of more features.
So when you were looking to start offshoring, is that the first place you started? Like you got someone in to manage things within JobTread?
Yeah, yeah, actually, that's exactly right. It wasn't intended to be job trade management. We do a lot of in-house building plans, so the actual structural plans we draw ourselves. And my drafter was somebody I subcontracted with locally, and with A couple projects, that's okay, but with 5, 10, pushing 15 projects, sometimes it was overwhelming for the subcontractor. And in the time audit, we were able to determine that this was a rock that we needed to work on. So I originally started looking for a drafter that could draw the plans the way I wanted them to be drawn without, pulling teeth with a structural engineer. And I said, hey, let's look for a drafter, somebody that can do 3D imaging, drafting, that'll really solve a problem that's a time sink for me. And I went looking for that, and I was a little bit worried because I'm like, man, maybe I only have 20 hours a week, maybe 25. How am I going to get my value? So I pursued this position. Clinton told me, interestingly, he's like, I don't think you're going to have a problem finding somebody just enough to keep somebody busy.
Mm.
And sure enough, that's true. I was like, yeah, that's probably right. And so we found a drafter, and I was able to, I had enough of an open mind to look for somebody that would be willing to do data entry, possibly, pulling details from the plan and putting them into JobTread for me. But I found a really nice candidate that, could fit a lot of the office management boxes. So now my office manager is handling the drafting as a side job, does it really well, but it's really an office manager position for me.
Okay. And are they based in the Philippines? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I connected with GoRecruit, and I believe GoRecruit sources a lot of their offshore help from the Philippines.
Yeah.
So that's where the resumes came from, and it's pretty easy for me to work with Filipinos. There's a lot of Filipinos here in California. Had lots of Filipinos in high school. Some of my classes in high school. So it's the cultural difference for me has been pretty negligible.
Did you ever have apprehension in terms of working with someone in a different country, that you couldn't have in the office, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I would say before the pandemic, and
Yeah.
then got comfortable with Zoom. So weirdly, I didn't consider an employee as I don't know where I missed the gap, but in the past, for instance, I've used Reddit to hire freelancers to edit photos for me. And I think it has to do with JobTread, but I had a platform that I could have an employee, use.
The biggest question on my mind, which I'm sure a lot of builders have as well, is how do you build that trust with someone if you've not done this before, or it feels a little bit of a foreign concept, and feel confident that you could throw them into JobTread and let them start managing things?
Oh yeah, you reminded me. Thank you.
No worries.
Right. Yeah, so that trust was a pretty important aspect of this offshoring for me. I was uncomfortable with the idea. Go Recruit really made me feel comfortable as the medium. I think it's Fiverr that I looked, and I'm like, hey, it feels like I'm hiring a stranger, and you have to give them immediate access to your files. I was uncomfortable with that. And I interviewed with Go Recruit, and I felt very comfortable with their plan,
Yeah.
and I decided to pursue it. So, working with strangers, I feel comfortable with, but yeah, like give them access to JobTread. That was a large ask, and the interview process went very well.
Yeah, I guess it's like hiring anyone in your business, though, right? You've got to extend some trust, and if you do a good interview process, then you should be confident.
Yeah, right. The candidates they presented me with were exceptional candidates. If I was interviewing or looking at resumes for, let's say, Americans, I would have been just as impressed.
Mm.
So, highly educated, excellent work history. They send videos of the candidates before you can see them, and the interview process, they can handle conversations really. I mean, Ray, my office manager, his English is probably better than mine.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some different words, but he speaks English. There's no missed beat.
And what kind of setup does Ray and the other offshorers you work with? What setup do they have? Are they working from home? Are they working out of an office which is managed by GoRecruit, or how does that work?
That was interesting to me too. Once I decided to hire, it's like, how does that work? Go Recruit will set it up. There's actually different types of candidates, and you can have a candidate that works from home, or they will set up an office space a cubicle, a dedicated cubicle for that employee. And it's actually up to the employer, me, to decide what kind of arrangement that I want. GoRecruit handles all of that. And that takes a lot of the guessing about what you're getting out. Depending on the position, it might be important to have somebody in a office space and a cubicle. Right now, Ray, my office manager, started in an office space, and his commute was pretty large. I have lots of trust in him, and we've built a good relationship. And I said, hey, you know what? Work from home, and it's been really good for both of us.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like it's just like any working relationship
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. I think back to my drafter that I was subcontracting with here that lives 10 minutes from me. And, initially we started seeing each other, once or twice a month. And after a year or two, I never saw them anymore. It was like, hey, this is a no brainer. Why are we overpaying when I have struggle getting her to do the work that I needed her to do anyway?
What would you say to someone? I imagine there's a premium that you pay for working with someone like GoRecruit, who's the in between. They set up the relationship, all of that kind of stuff, compared to if you were to try and find someone directly offshore and then try to work with them. So, what do you think the balance is between those two things? I mean, naturally, it's typically going to be less expensive than hiring someone locally in the US anyway, but
I guess there's a premium. I've thought about that a few times, and it's a premium I'm definitely willing to pay.
yeah.
I'm spread thin on time, and GoRecruit is handling 100% of the HR for my offshore employees. So, I get an invoice from them at the end of the month. I pay the bill. If there's any calling in sick or, I don't worry about the calendar, the days off, the holidays. I just reply to their messages. So even though I look at my offshore employees as, part of the company and part of the team, I don't actually have to worry about the difficulties of them not being in my office. There are some difficulties, but GoRecruit really takes care of all of that for me.
Yeah, you can't put a price on that peace of mind, I think. That takes a lot of load off you in terms of thinking about all those logistics.
I see the value in them doing that for me. I did look at, some online classifieds, and I just see it as pulling teeth trying to convince somebody that I have enough jobs for them to keep them busy. Will they dedicate? I really needed somebody specifically for myself. And I'm really happy with how GoRecruit, made me comfortable with the feeling.
What does it actually look like? And you've touched on this a little bit, but how do the offshore team members fit into your culture? And how have you found the day to day working with them and how it's different to working someone locally?
Yeah, so they are part of the team. I onboarded them using APB's onboarding lesson plan, and I followed it to the T. I just couldn't see them in person, but I used that. It was really a crutch for me. I was uncomfortable with the idea. I've onboarded many in-field employees, and that's something that I'm pretty good at and comfortable with. But office position, what is onboarding, right? How am I going to keep them busy? And the lesson plan worked really well to implement them into the company. And I've put Ray is in regular contact with the rest of my team. So it's all done via WhatsApp and cell phone. They have regular communication with each other, and it works well. Now, my offboarding team, they communicate with each other as well. So the culture that we've implemented infiltrates the whole entire company. Something important to me over the years is for everyone to feel comfortable coming to work and actually making it as enjoyable as possible. Construction is a difficult job. It's difficult. Customers are demanding. Sometimes the conditions, it feels impossible to work with, and we can be short with each other. But I've really tried to build a culture that people enjoy showing up and we smile at each other. And, one of my offshore employees, Kat, handles my marketing department. She's a joy to be around. Even though I don't see her in person, I'm seeing her on the computer, our interactions amongst the company. She's very bubbly and joyful, and it's part of the culture. It's what we want to present to our customers, and it's really good.
How do you balance, like, for example, if you were to want to do like a team culture building day or something where you went out for a lunch or something like that, how do you incorporate the offshore team into that?
I would say that's been a challenge for me, and have not found a great way to address it. That's something that I will be working on. I've thought about maybe bringing them to the country and visiting. That's crossed my mind, and I'm not sure behind the logistics, but I'm sure GoRecruit's going to have suggestions. But I would like to do that. I would like to see them in person, shake their hands, introduce them to the crew. Now, I can tell you my crew is very comfortable talking and working with them. Sometimes they just out of old bad habits will come to me for some questions, and it's like, hey, go to Ray, and they'll go to Ray. Ray will make them feel comfortable and confident. And in fact, they actually can appreciate the access to somebody that can give them dedicated time and information. Me spread thin, sales meeting, or not being able to tell them the exact detail. They can appreciate somebody else knowledgeable that did the design that can answer their question.
It'd be a fair expense bringing them across, but that would have a huge impact on their thoughts about the culture as well as the integration with the rest of the team. I think that'd be quite powerful.
We have small things like I've prepared an apparel package to send them. Our hats, our gear, our mugs. They are part of the company, and
Yeah.
this is their Christmas gift. They are important to me. I feel like I know them, and I feel like they're friends. We're also coworkers, but yeah, not having that physical interaction in the office, that's missing. But it helps being positive and the messaging, in our WhatsApp texts, and being patient and respectful with each other really helps to stay close.
It sounds like it's all been smooth sailing, working with GoRecruit and hiring all these great people. I'm sure it hasn't been perfect though. Is there any challenges that you ran into, and how did you overcome them?
There was a big challenge right about 3-4 months after I started working with GoRecruit. The first candidate I hired did not work out, and it was frustrating, to do an onboarding program, find out that the candidate and the person that I decided to hire did not fit. You automatically go to hey, is this an offshore problem or is this a my problem? So that's a challenge to get over mentally. But there's in adversity, it gives you the opportunity to grow. Instead of looking at that situation as like, oh no, what am I going to do? I talked with GoRecruit, and they confirmed my doubt and my problems. We decided to go in another direction, and it was a challenge trying to understand, like, okay, GoRecruit did a good job. Now what's going to happen? Like, I'm in a contract, and this guy didn't work out, and where do we go from here? And to GoRecruit's credit, I guess I would say, for me, an example is like a warranty claim. How do I handle a warranty, a customer calling from 3 years ago? Am I going to take care of that warranty, and how well will I perform in that warranty? Will it be immediate? Anyways, when the problems came to GoRecruit's attention, they were immediate in solving them for me. So they jumped right in and found new candidates. And I was skeptical, like, okay, are they just trying to fix this? But I put some thought into it. I think I realized that it's in GoRecruit's best interest to connect you with the right candidate.
Yeah.
So their costs must be associated with in finding the candidate, and then setting it up. And if they can connect you with the right candidate, you're smooth sailing, and they're good. So they did a really good job. The replacement was exactly what I wanted to in the beginning, but that was it was a challenge. But we made it through.
Well, yeah, well done sticking with it, because it would have been the easier route would have been to say offshoring doesn't work for me and kind of, yeah, cut ties from there.
You're exactly right. I'm somebody who historically has been adverse to change, and I look for reasons. I like knowledge and I like to learn new things. But if I hit roadblocks I think, oh, okay, I need to change directions, or that's not possible. It's not work. I guess I was so far into it that I was like, okay, I got to try again.
Yeah.
But the growth part of it, I was able to learn a lot with the first training the first candidate that I was able to apply, and the training process went much smoother with the second candidate. It had to be the candidate was better, and also I was a little bit better as well.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to other builders and contractors who are looking to offshore for the first time?
You got to try it. You got to at least explore the idea. So I look around me, and in the network of contractors that I'm around, I don't necessarily know all of my competition, but any similar sized companies to mine, I have a tremendous advantage over. It's clear my margins are better because I'm able to budget I have more staff helping me. My fixed expense is lower. I'm providing more service to my customers. Something that I'll get at real quick is, there's a little bit of apprehension. I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but in the United States, I would say historically there's this idea, maybe it's something with, so many large corporations has been sending, jobs overseas, that's, we're losing jobs. And I think there was a little bit of reservation on my end because of that. But here's the thing, this is the truth. I hired one offshore employee and I added 3 Americans to my staff. So that gave me increased capacity to hire Americans. And that it's like, if, so in the microeconomic scale, it really works well. I mean, there's actual growth that's happening in the company. So my advice is at least explore the idea. You need to do an interview. You need to take the small steps to get you at least, find out what it costs you, compare it to, what you have and what your opportunities are.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what you're saying is by hiring the offshore, that kind of gave you more time to focus on the growth of the company, which allowed you to then hire more Americans and grow more jobs, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. We're right now looking for I just signed up with Contractor Staffing Source, I believe, just yesterday. So we're looking for a project manager. So I can't handle as many projects as we have with the additional capacity. I think it's 25 open projects, 27 open projects, and I just can't project manage them. So I'm now looking for more, before this office staff in offshore work, I really struggled how am I going to manage a project manager? How am I going to teach
Yeah.
him how to use our system? But this is much clearer path for me to take.
Cool. Well, for any APB members out there, all of the services you've mentioned are actually partners, so they can get a rebate for being a member. Go to our rewards directory to check them out. JobTread, GoRecruit, and Contractor Staffing Source as well. So thanks for sharing them, Scott. Before we wrap up, you've mentioned Clint a couple of times, and there's been an underlining tone of that. Clint Best is your coach, obviously, one of APB's executive business coaches. Can you tell me more about your relationship with Clint and how that's developed and through APB?
I love Clint. I'm excited to see
I love Clint.
him.
So do I.
I see him once a month. We talk a couple times during the month, maybe via email. I've been working with him for a couple of years. It's been a ride for me. When I started working with him, I was really, to be honest, embarrassed of my books and system and process, and it's very, private. I don't really share the details with many people, but Clint made me feel very comfortable to share. And the first few months I was learning a lot, but he was also learning a lot about me. I would say there's something I read. You guys sent me a book by John Maxwell, and I hadn't heard of John Maxwell before, but I've read a ton of his books lately. And one of his books, he says something like, the gap between knowledge and action is bigger than the gap between ignorance and knowledge. And that gets to the point that I could get all this information from the lesson plans, but I always look for a reason not to implement something. And working with Clint, he takes a lot of the doubt away, and then I can take action. And in fact, sometimes he may suggest, hey, you should take action in this area. And that's been a game changer for me. I really appreciate and highly respect him for the way he handles our relationship, and he's a joy to work with.
I love that saying actually, because it's so easy. Well, it's not easy, but from ignorance to knowledge, like you said, a lot of people can get to that point, but it's action which separates the high achievers like yourself and others.
Exactly right.
And shout out to Clint for setting us up for having a chat as well, because this has been great.
Yeah, very nice talking with you, Will.
Yeah, Scott, thanks so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you sharing a story, and there's been some phenomenal advice for other builders out there that might be looking to offshore and just take inspiration from your journey.
Happy to join.
Cheers. A big thank you to our listeners as well, wherever you are in the world. If you like the show today, please subscribe to Professional Builders Secrets on your platform of choice. And if you're feeling generous, leave us a review. But until next time, have a great day.